So here is the lovely little Pymmes Brook. This isn't the subject of today's walk. I've made a video along the Pymmes Brook before, which I'll link to below. The Pymmes Brook here does contain some of the waters of the river that we will be following today. A lost river as well. And here is the mother river, the River Lea, that the river we'll be following today is a tributary of. Have you guessed already? I know some of you will, seeing as we're here at Tottenham Hale. So today we're walking along the Moselle, Haringey's lost river. It rises up in Highgate Woods. It collects a few other little tributaries along the way, little brooks here and there as it makes its way down through Hornsey and then down through Tottenham to make its confluence with the Lea just down here actually near Markfield Park as it goes around the wonderful Markfield beam engine. Wonderful great old steam pumping engine, a bit like the one at Crossness, which is much more celebrated. And so I'm really looking forward to this walk today. It's been requested a few times because, as long-time viewers of the channel will know, I do love a lost river. I do love a bit of river hunting, and the Moselle is North London's. Hey, is it North London's? Is this North East London's lost river really? Although there's quite a few other little ones that join with it that we may discuss along the way. We may even see them. But we get a glimpse of the Moselle up here, I believe, according to Tom Bolton in his book, Lost Rivers of London, or London's Lost Rivers, I can never remember which, but I'll put an image of said book on the screen. But I'm primarily today going to use a leaflet that I bought in an Oxfam bookshop for 50p. That's produced by the friends of Haringey Parks, I think. And I'll dip into Tom's book here and there as well. Actually, the first section comes from Tom's book, where he follows the old course of the Moselle before it was rerouted to go across sort of underneath Tottenham marshes. So we'll follow that up through Tottenham. I don't know if Tottenham are playing at home today, but that could add some spice, couldn't it? And so the first section of the walk is just along here, along the Lea navigation from Tottenham Hale station down to Markfield Park. So the Moselle makes its confluence with the Lea somewhere here by this railway bridge. Yeah, and here it is. You can see just in front of the railway bridge there, I'll put a little arrow in to indicate where the Moselle makes its confluence with the River Lea. And as I never cease to mention, the confluence between two rivers was often seen as a sacred spot in pagan beliefs, in pre-Christian beliefs. So there would have been votive offerings made at this very spot here. The Markfield beam engine is in that glorious great big brick building over there. A Victorian steam pump built as part of the sewage works. And this was a floodplain here. Flooded, marshy lands. The Tottenham marshes were much more expansive than they are today. And it's playing on those marshes that a group of fellows got together to kick a ball about. Eventually became Tottenham Hotspur, bringing pain and disappointment to thousands of people. And what's interesting, in all the times I've been in this park, which is a fair number of times, I'd never noticed this channel here. I think this is the channel along which the Moselle runs. I would assume it runs in this part of the park, parallel to the railway tracks. Actually, I don't think this is the Moselle here. I mean, I could be wrong. I think it's just a drainage ditch because it's very wet land, because it's completely clogged up with leaves. And over here, I can't see where the river is flowing into this culvert, so this could be a little bit of a false lead, or maybe a reference to the river. I can see some manhole covers there in the undergrowth, but I can't see any open water, which I have heard mentioned, and I've seen it on Google Earth, on the satellite view, but because of the amount of water running off the northern heights down to the River Lea. Tottenham was well known for its flooding problems, its issues with flooding all around the Tottenham area, because it's the floodplain of the River Lea and also the number of tributaries running down. There are a number of sayings associated with that. One of them was, "Highgate's rain is Tottenham's pain." You can imagine there's some sort of Arsenal-Tottenham thing going on there as well, can't you? I suppose all this concrete here in the park is the remains of the old sewage treatment works. And of course that was the fate of many of London's rivers, as they were pushed underground and absorbed into the sewage system. I really love the way these features are retained and then absorbed into the park, so that we remember them in some way, and actually they also still retain a degree of utility as well. So we're going to head under the railway bridge here and up Markfield Road, which is the course of the old Moselle. And this kind of industrial area that we're going through now is a classic feature of river valleys, of lost rivers. This is the kind of landscape we often encounter. And like much of the Ensoleilee Valley, the gentrification is finding its way up the river from the lower Lea and from Hackney and Leighton and Walthamstow, and it's well and truly here in Tottenham now. Well, I looked at Manyons from the side and I thought, well, that's a lost pub on a lost river. But then I come around the front and the Manyons Prince Arthur is alive and well, and there's a healthy cohort of drinkers in there, so that's it's good to see. And now we walk up Broad Lane. The river is running beneath this road here, and we follow this up to the Hale, nowadays known as Tottenham Hale, but originally known as the Hale. It's interesting, the leaflet I've got from the Friends of Haringey Parks, I think that's what they call, I'll put a link below to their website. They actually miss out this section and basically follow the Pymmes Brook down across Tottenham marshes. You can see why. It's quite gnarly and heavily industrialised and lots of traffic. But this is the route of the old Moselle. The other route is where I think it was the brook was straightened to make its confluence with the Pymmes Brook up near Tottenham Marshes. So we go along Parkview Road towards Bruce Castle and Tottenham Cemetery. And I believe, according to Tom Bolton's map, that the river's running through that park there. I was about to say the shape of the road has a slightly riverine feel to it, doesn't it? But that's obviously nonsense, because that's not where the river's actually running. Tottenham would have been playing at home against Arsenal today, the North London derby, but it was postponed due to an outbreak of the pandemic in the Arsenal camp. So the river basically cuts across the end of Junction Road here. That rather majestic block of flats there has the river running behind it, I believe, according to Tom's map. So we go up Ladysmith Road. I think Ladysmith is a Boer War reference, isn't it? Of course, those references are quite prevalent around London due to the amount of development that was done around the time of the Boer War, and because of the loss of life and all the battles there, that they wanted to commemorate them in the street names. That's where the river is, just down there, where those flowers are painted on the wall. One of the reasons I really enjoy these Lost River walks so much, these urban Lost River walks, is when you're sort of like ducking and weaving around the streets, you see the fact that even though we've pushed these little watercourses underground. They still have to be accommodated in the street plan and in the architecture. We build around them, we acknowledge their presence, even though we've treated them horribly by turning them into sewers. So here at Scotland Green, at this point here, the Moselle split in two. One branch, it was basically a ditch that was cut to help with drainage. The Carbuncle ditch carried on in that direction and made its confluence with the Pymmes Brook. The Two Brewers is an interesting looking little place, isn't it? That was obviously a Tottenham pub. You can see the Tottenham badge in the window there. And just further along this little row of cottages, you have the Victoria Free House, which looks like it's still alive and well. It's a fine looking old Victorian pub, isn't it? So the Moselle is running along the west side, i.e. the left side of the frame of Tottenham High Road. And considering that the river was actually open, I think, well into the 19th century, there must be images of it running beside this road here. You've got a pair of really amazing buildings here on this junction on Tottenham High Road. On the left hand side there, I'm going to stick my neck out and say that's an old library. I'll look it up after. And then facing it is this beautiful kind of Art Deco building from 1930. I'd say that was built as a department store. That's a fine building, isn't it? The Tottenham Baptist Church. Worthy of a lost river. And another fine 20th century building there. Looks like it's some sort of tutoring centre for maths and English, but I guess that was once a school or a college or some sort of administrative building. And you really can't miss the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, can you? It's like a spaceship's landed on Tottenham High Road. Shows you the date of my map here, by the way, because it isn't on my old map. So, wow, it's the first time I've seen it. It's quite majestic, isn't it? What's arguably more interesting is this little fragment here, this wall that was obviously an entrance to something. Because you say it has two doors for men and one for women. What was that for? Do you reckon that was a Lido perhaps? That's my best guess. And here we have the Beavertown pub here on the corner of the street. Now that is the name of the brewery, Beavertown, and I was told that their name comes from the fact that they started in the basement of a pub in de Beauvoir Town, Hackney. And the old name for de Beauvoir, before it was developed, was Beavertown. I don't know whether that's correct or not, but it's a good story. And I believe that house there is called Moselle House, which I think is the first reference to the river that we've seen in street names. There are a few more along its course. Haringey is the subject of a lot of regeneration schemes, some more successful than others, and the Tottenham Stadium development here was seen to be part of the regeneration of this area. I think local people have different thoughts on who benefits most from some of these schemes. I know there was a lot of opposition to a thing called the Haringey Development Vehicle that a lot of local residents thought would very negatively impact the area. But the Tottenham scheme has happened, and I imagine there's more on the way. Now, according to my little leaflet here, you can see a section of the river in this library here, Coombs Croft Library. I don't know if that's true or not, and I very much doubt it's open at nearly 4 o'clock on a Sunday, but let's have a look. Yeah, sadly it's closed today, but if you're in the area and you're doing the Moselle walk, you pop in and see if that's actually true, whether there is a section of the river visible in the library. So we now turn down White Hart Lane, traditional home of Tottenham Hotspur, towards Tottenham Cemetery. And look, we found this lovely little plaque here in the street about the Moselle, the watery artery running through Haringey, east from Queenswood to join the River Lea in the west. So it ran above ground until the 19th century. So it's got the route of the river here, cutting across Lordship Park. I think the park's going to be shut by the time we get there, unfortunately, but it shows how basically the river is running beneath this plaque here, which is delightful, isn't it? And I'm heartened to see this, that Haringey's policy is to return the Moselle to the surface to restore the wildlife habitats. So this permeable paving is part of the scheme to bring the river back towards the surface in some kind of way. The railway tavern there, all boarded up. It's always a sad sight to see a pub closed and shuttered up. So I think the river is cutting through there, where you can see that alleyway. And it's running along here, Beaufoy Road, to Tottenham Cemetery, and I think it may be above ground there. Hope we can still get in through the gate. So I think the Moselle has entered the cemetery down the bottom there. You can see the low ground down there, where there are some allotments, and it's running along that edge of the cemetery. With a bit of luck, we'll just be in time to get inside. And you can see the Moselle is marked on the cemetery plot plan here, running through the middle of the cemetery, so let's see if we can find it. According to the Google map, the river is running just behind these graves here, between the cemetery and the allotments. I haven't really got a lot of time before the gate shut. I'd quite like to not get locked in here. I don't fancy scrambling out over the iron railings, but let's have a quick nosy, shall we? Oh, it could be a culvert down there, right down in that holly. That's my best guess. And I think, yeah, look, and here it is. The gentle trickling waters of the Moselle, which here is certainly not lost. It's a beautiful little stream. Isn't that a brilliant moment? Oh wow. It's always magic when you actually see a lost river flowing above ground like this, like any normal river. Well, that has absolutely made my day. Absolutely. I was getting a little bit disheartened about the fact I'm going to run out of daylight any minute, and I wasn't sure what to do, but just seeing this here, I would come here today just to come into the cemetery to see this stretch of the Moselle. Well, there's even a bridge here over the Moselle. I've got to be honest with you, I did not expect to be stood here on a bridge overlooking the Moselle. That's really taken me by surprise. It's a real massive treat. Wow, look at this. Such a crime to force it underground again. Right, I better make for the gate, otherwise I'll get locked in here and that really won't make my day. Can you hear that sound? Some foxes running around over there. I don't know whether they're playing or mating. Very noisy this time of year. What I was going to say was we'll have to deal with the sound of the foxes. This is All Hallows Church, Tottenham, which that tower does look of a significant age, doesn't it? This is going to be one to look up when I get home. Could be a Victorian folly. Wow, those foxes are really going for it, aren't they? We have this in our street all night long. I do love them. I do love the urban fox though, not complaining.
All Hallows is indeed a 12th century church and one of the oldest buildings in the London borough of Haringey. It's reputed to have been given to Tottenham by King David I of Scotland, who ruled from 1124 to 1153.
I think we must allow ourselves to deviate from the course of the river to come and admire Bruce Castle. This is said to be a 16th century mansion. The name refers to the Bruce family, you know, of Robert the Bruce and all that business. And apparently the kings of Scotland owned parts of the manor of Tottenham, and actually the other owners were also rivals to the Scottish throne. You don't think of a chunk of North London belonging to the Scottish royal family, do you? But here you are. It's actually built on the site of a much older medieval castle, an actual castle rather than a manor house or a mansion. It was built here from the 12th century. So this site here is steeped in history. I have to be honest, I'm reading that information saying it's 16th century from Tom Bolton's book, but I've got to be honest, if I saw that building I would not think that was 16th century, would you? I'm not an expert on these things, and apparently there is a brick Tudor tower stood nearby. It really is a majestic building, and we often talk about the things that have been lost in London, but it's really good to appreciate and celebrate those that remain and tell their magnificent stories. Well, I think this is the perfect place to end our walk along the Moselle, Haringey's lost river, which, as we've seen, is not so lost after all. And I feel like when I saw the river there running through the cemetery above ground, I thought, this is it. This is the end of my walk today. This is the point I was walking towards, to see this river here. I believe it is visible in a couple of other places, Lordship Park and Priory Park further on, but they're both closed now, so that will be for another day. But I'm deeply satisfied with this expedition today. I love walking along lost rivers. It's really fantastic. The museum looks like it's still open, so I'm going to dash in there because I reckon it must shut at 5 o'clock. So you take care, have a great week. As I always like to say, I look forward to seeing you on the next walk, wherever that may be. It's a possibility, 50-50 chance, it will be another lost river, but let's wait and see, shall we?